Hello humans, Master Dinnerflex here, bringing you the low quality content you deserve. And today I'll be going over the Mayakashi deck profile I was talking about earlier. Now before we get into it, I want to show off the approach I take to this deck at any given time, just so you can understand the choices a little better and understand how the one card combo works with this deck. So at first, before anything else, I am just going to start with the one card combo. Then after that's all said and done, we can worry about the rest of our cards in hand. So Hyjin will summon Daki, and then we will just painful choice our extra deck. We will Synchro 3, Synchro 5, Synchro 7, Synchro 9, Synchro 11, Link 2, Link 3, and the Daki will summon itself. Now, what I showed off earlier is I would just make the Link 4 and call it a day here, but as I started testing the deck more, and someone pointed out in the comments, there's no reason that you could stop at the Link 4. What you can do is go ahead and link back down into the Link 2, which will summon Daki, which will make the Link 3 again, which will trigger the Daki, and you could keep doing that until you put all three in the graveyard. Now, I will say the reason I don't, I would do this, but normally I don't do all three, just because there's like a lot of anti-graveyard effects that are possible, like DD Crow, and God forbid Soul Exchange, not Soul Exchange, Soul Release, that would be terrible, but really the actual reason is because on the follow-up OTK, you want Daki to be able to summon itself out of the graveyard to trigger the Link 4 to turn something to 0 just for an easy OTK. But in order to do that, you have to have an extra deck. So, as you can see, we only have one more Link 2 and one more Link 3. So if we do that, we will no longer have the ability to re-summon this out of the graveyard. So at this point is where I normally make the Link 4. I try to keep the third Link 3 and the third Link 2 in the graveyard, in the extra deck as long as possible, just so Daki can help with the OTK on the follow-up. So, because you actually have two Icicle Mayakashi in the graveyard, you can go ahead and, like, banish it to summon the Spider, which will mill both players by 3. So we will mill 3, and these mills are absolutely nuts. What? So, in the case of this, we can just banish, and I will set, actually, the counter trap. And then, in addition, I can activate Curse Eldlich, and I will search another Golden Land. And, finally, since this is in the hand, I can send Golden Lord, actually. And finally, I can send this to special this. I can synchro these two off. Revive Daki. And then finally, we can... Oh, Curse Eldlich's going to trigger to send a Golden Land. I guess send another Conch. And then we can go ahead and banish this from our graveyard to put this back. And then during the end phase, the Golden Land will trigger, and we will set a Sanguine. Now, this hand was, I'm not going to lie, kind of insane. So, on our opponent's turn, when they commit to try to play, just tribute a thing, go ham. If they have red reboot, we have a counter trap, so the counterplay is literally nothing. And then, after this, we can chain Sanguine, or even Conch, because we could save this until they commit to something, and then really punish them. And then we can, like, chain Conch, chain Elixir, pull a Synchro out of the graveyard, which we can do Elixir whenever we want, because the only place players can special summon with is from the graveyard, but since we control a Golden Lord, we can just summon any of these. But the Conch, the moment we resolve this, the Conch won't be able to summon itself. But everything here is completely valid. I even drew a hand trap on top of it. But this is like the kind of play you're going to see with the deck. And now that we got this out of the way, let's go ahead and get into the deck profile. Alright, so we're on to the deck list. I will say the Mayakashi numbers can easily be changed up and around. The reason I have them so high is just because the Mayakashi combo is just so strong, and you want to access it. Even if you don't draw this Haijin, it's fine if you draw Daki, Mitsume. Like, that's totally fine, as long as you can just get into the combo. That's where it matters the most. Because once you start synchro summoning, Valor and Ash and Imperm no longer serve any function. So your focus is to just get the tuner and the non-tuner on board, which is why they are at higher numbers. And even though you only need one Daki, there's actually quite a few benefits to playing more than one. Not only for the case of Small World, which, as you can see, but in addition, if your opponent has Crow or Ghost Bell, and you have 2 of these in the graveyard, it means no matter what, one of them is going to get summoned. Now, you can only control one at a time, but you can activate them both in the same chain, but at resolution, only one will come back. So, no matter if they Ghost Spell, you're getting it, and if they DD Crow, you're just getting the other. So, that's like a cool interaction with this. But mainly the second one's in here as a Small World bridge, but also it and Mitsume can just get the engine going. And then 2 Golden Lord, the sexy alternate art. You cannot play the original because this one's way too attractive. So, yeah, 2 of those. 1 Mizuki to kind of be like an emergency send-off Mitsume. It's also a Small World bridge because it's a level 4, and there are not very many. Like, nothing matches its stats, I don't think. Yeah, nothing matches its stats, and nothing matches its level. And in the case of the Mayakashis, nothing matches its attributes. So this is like a great Small World bridge. And then Triple Ash, it's a zombie, which is very helpful. Effect Veiler, it's a light, so you can use Eldlich as the bridge. And then finally, Ghost Bell. I don't remember how you bridge with this. I'll remember later. And then we got Triple Return. Not only is it a Searcher, but it's a Foolish Burial, because once you have Haijin and Resolves, you don't actually want to add anything else outside of, like, let me rephrase it. You don't need to add any other monsters. You can just go ahead and add this, which is nice. But if you're actually going second, Foolish Burialing this and this is, like, really, really strong. So keep that in mind. The Foolish Burial effect is as relevant as its ability to search. Small World, like I said, the main thing you want to do is just get into the Mayakashi loop. And Small Worlds can help you get there, especially since everything can get into something else, which is nice. And then Triple Curl Sheldland, it says monsters cannot attack except zombie monsters, which doesn't mean anything. So that's pretty cool. Also, like, Golden Lord to send something off the field is so incredibly relevant. Not to mention, like, there are so many good spells and traps to discard in this deck. Not only do you have the Eldlich cards themselves, but even this is, like, fantastic if you're going second. So, yeah. And then 1 Foolish and 1 1-for-1. Now, Foolish, I'm not going to lie, is not very useful. It's definitely a consistency card if you've specifically already seen a Mayakashi. Otherwise, it's kind of eh. But 1-for-1, on the other hand, is pretty insane. So, this is nice. And then for the traps, Triple Sanguine. This list might look quite a bit different from ones you've seen, like, of this earlier, because, like I said, originally, before the Link 3, this deck needed the Eldlich cards to function. It's not about they helped Mayakashi. Mayakashi didn't do anything without the Eldlich cards. But now that they have their own independent plays, you don't need as many Eldlich cards as you can possibly put in your deck. You don't need 3 black, 3 white, 3 red, 3 of everything. You don't need that. So you can actually calm down on the engine quite a bit and have a more consistent deck. And yes, while black and white and red are consistency boosters, they're very slow at it, and they're very situational consistency boosters. Because if you, in order to actually, for them to be consistency boosters, it means you already have seen Golden Lord. And even if you're playing 3 with all these summons, it doesn't mean you get to use those same summons for these. So if you black out Golden Lord out of the deck, you can't black out the Mayakashi. It's just, they're not actual consistency boosters, and they're a lot of the times much more bricky than originally intended. But that's good because the Mayakashi have gained their own independence, which means you can play a more consistent Eldlich package. So that was a lot to say, but hopefully you guys kind of get it. Like, you don't need as many Eldlich cards anymore because you don't need them to band-aid the deck. They both can play on their own now, which is very nice. It's actually just so nice for it. And then triple conk, one hawk. You can bump this up. I just wanted to test out the counter trap instead, which is very nice. And then only 2 of the really broken trap, because not only can you search it so it's at 5, but in reality, it's only a going first card that functions if you can already play. Yes, it's an auto win, but in order to auto win, you have to play the game, which, like, even though there's, like, a lot of ways to get to this card, sometimes you just don't. So, you have to keep in mind that you kind of want to have a lot of the cards in this deck more independent, which is kind of what I built this for. Which is also why I'm not playing Mayhem anymore, just because it's very, very dependent on you already being in a very winning position, so it just wasn't worth it. Even though it's a trap you can send with Golden Lord, it just wasn't very good. That's it for the main deck. For the side deck, let's get into that first, because the extra deck's a lot more simple than you think it is. So let's Stroll. Now, these 5 cards are the only ones I actually want to talk about, honestly. So Token Collector, yeah, it's good against Sword Soul, and it'll be good against the Brave nonsense. But the funny thing is, that combo I showed off at the start of the video mills both players' decks by 3. So not only do you get to see it with your opening hand and try to bridge into it with things like Small World and whatnot, but you also get to mill 3, which is an extra 3 chances to see Token Collector, which is hilarious. And then it's the same with Banshee. This is another card you can kind of see with that thing. But more importantly, it's something you can send with Yuki Misume. So you can just send this, activate Zombie World, and then some decks are just over. They can't play, which is nice. And then side deck cards. For the extra deck, so I see a lot of decks, like when they build this deck, it's like 2 of every synchro, and then like not maxed out on the links, including the link 3, and that doesn't make sense to me. Okay, so here's why. All of these, like, once they're in the graveyard, they serve no other function. They have very little function in the main deck, or in the extra deck still, because, well, the links, you can just use whatever. The synchros, you need specific levels, and you need specific interactions to get them out, and then when you summon them out of the extra deck, they're just beaters. They're do-nothing beaters. You have to pull them out of your graveyard for them to even have effects. So, having multiples in the extra deck serves virtually no function. The only exception is when you're taking into account cards that negate summons, like Judgment and like Strike. Just things like that. Things that negate summons. And if you're concerned about the summons being negated, then maxing out on 2 of these is still kind of inefficient, because there are 2 places where negating the summon matters, and that is on the level 3 synchro and the level 7. And why is that? Because the level 3, if they negate the summon because you hygiened out a thing or you did this cycle, if they take this out, it means if you only played 1 of these, all of these cards no longer get you to your engine. However, if you play a second, following up with another one, it still gets you there. And then that goes the same with the level 7. Because the Golden Lands are level 5 zombies, and then the Tuner is level 2, so if you just really can't get into your engine, you can go into it that way. So if they negate the summon, you can still try again with this method. These are the only 2 that if their summon gets negated, it can be devastating, which is why the only reason you would ever multiple out on them would be these 2. Because if you are even worried about, oh, I won't negate the Synchro 3, but I'll negate the Synchro 5, that's chaotic, like, logic that doesn't really hold up, because I could just play the level 5. I could just play the level 7. So you want to negate the summon of the first one you see, especially when you consider if they don't negate the first one they see, they're just loading up the graveyard with monsters I can use later. So there's like no benefit from waiting for one summon to negate a follow-up when you don't even know the deck list you're up against. That's just the theory behind it. And even if you negate a later summon, the earlier summons can still be revived because they were summoned properly. Hopefully that makes sense. And then finally, if you're playing Mayakashi, you need to max out on both of these. I don't care what I don't care what you're thinking. The whole point of this Link 3 is that they massively give this deck a real win condition, and they do it with one card. Oh, look, it's Simo. And the Link 3 gives it a win condition, and you just want to summon it as much as possible. You want to throw as many in the graveyard. You want to go, haha, the grass is greener in your extra deck, and that's the way you can do it with this card. You just want to max out on these. If anything, if you ever wanted to cut a card from this extra deck, it would be cut this down to 1. Because as long as this is summoned properly, you can just pull it out with the elixirs. So even at 1, it's kind of fine. And then you could like bump up the number of maybe the spider or the Yugioh. It doesn't matter. Because there's not a lot of bridges to get into it anyway. But that's basically it. Oh, one thing I will mention is if you ever wanted to add like generic extra deck monsters, keep in mind the moment any Mayakashi makes it onto the board except the Link 3 and the Link 4, that is not an option. Because I've seen people put in Vampire Sucker and whatnot, and the only way you can access this is if you've gone several turns without seeing Mayakashi, but you are looping the Eldlich engine, and then you finally see a Mayakashi, and you want something to do with the Eldlich cards. If that's the case, that's fine, but keep in mind, this is going to be a very, very rare scenario. But to be fair, it might be a little more important than the second Link 4. But yeah, that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you enjoyed my explanation, because it's kind of all over the place, I'm aware. But yeah, it's a very nice deck. The more I test it, the more I'm actually kind of interested in this deck. It plays very well. It plays like, funny enough, Evil Twins, where it's like this one card super powerful play that can do so much with so little. And like, if it doesn't resolve or you just want to have the rest of the cards, you can just throw everything. You can like do your one card play in step 4 or have like 4 hand traps. It's that same kind of concept. But unlike Evil Twins, Evil Twins has the same win condition of draw a card, pop a card. And that's only what it's ever going to be until you start messing with like the extenders like I do with Arclight or the IP stuff. But with this, my bad. With this, you can actually change your win condition because the level 7 pops back rows, so you can take out like back row decks, or the monster can stop a combo, or you can mill your opponent some, try to get some extra Eldlich cards. Like, you can change up how you're interacting with your opponent at any given time. Well, at the same time, this deck is far more capable of OTKing than Evil Twin ever was because of this Link 4 and how absolutely massive the Eldlich and Mayakashi cards are. But this is a lot of fun. Thank you all for watching, and remember, Master Dinnerflax will take your soul.